Thank you. Good afternoon. This is the 44th meeting of the 24th Council, and I will call this meeting to order. All councilors appear to be present. There might be a few that are tardy, and they will join us shortly. I would like to start our meeting with a moment of silence. And I would just like to reflect, councilors, on the recent election. So I hope that we just pray for peace in our city, and I wish the new councilors success in their endeavors. We all contribute a lot of our time, and it's difficult, not always the outcomes that we wish for. I hope the new councilors are actually able to get this crime under control, and I really pray for peace in our city. So just join me in a moment of silence, if you would, please. Thank you, councilors. Thank you to the public. Is Councilor Harris with us? Councilor Harris? I don't see Councilor Harris with us yet. I'm sure he will be joining us momentarily. So with that, I would like to ask, let's see, Councilor Sena, would you like to start Pledge of Allegiance in English, please?
Thank you, Madam President. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Davis, would you like to join us for Pledge of Allegiance in Spanish, please?
I will do my best, Madam President. Excuse me. Juro fidelidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y la República que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilors, plural. So I'm going to read some information into the record. I'm sure that all councilors are a little exhausted from yesterday, so we're going to try to move our meeting along as quickly as possible. But for the public's information, I'd like to read this information into the record. As noted in a press release from our office on Friday, posted on our website, and noticed on our published council agenda, this meeting has special procedures and is being held via Zoom video conference. Members of the public, city staff, and the media have the ability to view this meeting live through 4 different platforms: GOV-TV on Comcast Channel 16, the GOV-TV website, YouTube, and the Zoom webinar. These live streams can be accessed from most smartphones, tablets, or computers. Also, this meeting is closed captioned, and you may enable the closed captioning services on your television or device at this time. For those watching on the live stream, we want to thank you this afternoon for joining us. The video recording of this and all past council meetings will also remain available for viewing at any time on the council website, and that is accessible via cabq.citycouncil. Council staff is available via telephone if members of the public need assistance finding the video timeline. Please call 505-768-3100 for assistance during business hours, which are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The council is accepting live general public comments today, as well as any written comments. Written comments received by 1 a.m. were distributed to all the councilors in advance of today's meeting. And so the councilors did receive all of that information for today. So with that, councilors, we will start with our item number 3, which is proclamations and presentations. And this afternoon, I will be reading a proclamation to our veterans in honor of Veterans Day this month. And we have with us, joining us today is the New Mexico State Cabinet Secretary Smith. Good afternoon, Sonia Smith. How are you? It's great to see you. We all get together for lunch sometime soon, I hope. Thank you for joining us. She is New Mexico Department of Veterans Services Cabinet Secretary, and she will be accepting our proclamation today. So with that, counselors, I'm just going to read the proclamation into the record. And that's the only proclamation we have, and I believe the only presentation also. So Julian, could you put that on the screen? Because otherwise I have to toggle back and forth. Thank you so much. So I will start. Whereas the United States of America holds firmly to the belief that all citizens are guaranteed inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas American freedom requires protection and vigilance contributed by our nation's military men and women who sacrifice personally to preserve and protect our nation and its freedom from both foreign and domestic enemies. And whereas on November 11th, 1918 at 11 a.m., the United States and its allies signed the Armistice Agreement, ending World War I, a war that reaped heavy toll on the American, Canadian, and European families, with losses of and injuring to countless members of the military. And whereas in 1926, the United States federal government recognized Veterans Day, occurring every year on November 11th, as a national holiday in honor of those brave soldiers on land, sea, and air who defended our country. And whereas on the first Armistice Day, November, in America, the reflection of Armistice Day will be filled with solemn pride in the heroism of those who died in the country's service and with gratitude for the victory. And whereas more than 150,000 military veterans currently reside in New Mexico and provide vital civic, economic, and social contributions throughout our great state of New Mexico communities. And whereas since the global war on terror, 3.3 million veterans have served in the U.S. military. And whereas as of 2021, there are 19 million U.S. veterans and 1.4 million active duty military service members living in the U.S. or deployed in more than 150 countries. And whereas women veterans demonstrate commendable bravery, strategy, and skill under conditions of hardship during their times in service and represent a significant portion of the U.S. Armed Forces. And whereas hundreds of veterans are returning home to New Mexico as the United States prepares to withdraw forces from Afghanistan, returning members of the forces are encouraged to apply for the veterans' benefits they have so greatly earned. Be it proclaimed that the council, the governing body of the city of Albuquerque, hereby recognizes New Mexico veterans and the freedom and prosperity they preserve for our country, state, and municipality. This Veterans Day, November 11th, and I would say this upcoming because this is a little early, counselors, but I want to thank all of the counselors for signing this proclamation. And at this point, I would like to turn it over to Cabinet Secretary Smith.
Thank you so much, Council President Borrego. I appreciate this opportunity, and thank you to the other counselors as well. On behalf of the 150,000 veterans that you mentioned in that beautiful proclamation, thank you for recognizing the men and women who were called to serve, and they served. And we also want to recognize the families that support them as well. Here at the Department of Veterans Services, every day is Veterans Day for us. So it is a great honor that we serve in this position, and we really recognize and are honored to have the support of the city of Albuquerque in all of our efforts. We know that there is the large part of the veterans, or a large percentage of veterans reside in Albuquerque. And you do a wonderful job as a city making sure that they're taken care of. And I believe our partnership is only going to get stronger in this effort. So I could go on, but I know you have business to take care of. So thank you so very much again from us here at the Department of Veteran Services, and also from our governor as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary Smith. Any counselors like to address our Cabinet Secretary? I don't see any.
Madam
We
Chair,
will.
Madam President.
Oh, thank you, Counselor Gibson. I think I heard. Counselor
Yes,
Gibson.
thank you. Just very briefly, I'd like to thank Ms. Smith for her words and for making every day Veterans Day. Thank you for
Yes,
all
ma'am.
the work that you do for our veterans here. That's it. I just appreciate you very much, you and your department.
Thank you so very much for that. It doesn't feel like work at all.
Thank you, Madam, and we appreciate all of the work that you do for our great state and our country very
Thank you.
much. So, and our veterans mostly appreciate them. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, they're a great group of people. Okay, all right then. Well, as it goes, I'm sure you have business to do and I do as well. So thank you for the proclamation. I see some of my friends there. Hey, Mr. Davis, how are you? Okay, great. Take care. Be safe.
Thank you.
Hug a veteran. Safely. 6 feet apart. Okay, bye. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you for making us smile today. We will move on, counselors, to economic development discussion, and there is none. So with that, we will move on to our general public comments. But before we proceed with our general public comments, I'm just, for the record, going to read some information. And I just want to say hello to those out in TV land. We're still doing Zoom meetings, unfortunately. Hopefully in the near future, we will be working on less remotely and more in live person. You will be providing live public comment today for those of you who signed up. Written comments were distributed to our counselors in advance of today's meeting. Members of the public will be able to address the council if they have signed up for live public comment per the instructions published on the agenda and on our website on Friday. Speakers will be moved into the meeting room 2 at a time. They will remain muted with their cameras off until they are called upon to speak, at which point they can turn on their camera, unmute themselves, and will have 1.5 minutes to provide comments to the City Council. After that, they will again be muted and return to be an attendee of the Zoom webinar. So here are the public ground rules. Each participant has 1.5 minutes to present. Comments are to be addressed to the counselors only through the council president. Any disruptive comments or conduct will result in removal from the Zoom webinar. Mr. Moya, how many speakers do we have signed up to speak today?
Madam President, we had 4 people sign up to speak, and so far 2 of them have joined the meeting.
Okay, well, with that, we will proceed with the 2 that are available, and I would just ask counselors if you would mute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Our first speaker is Veronica Herman. Ms. Herman, please feel free to turn your video on, unmute yourself, and your time will begin when you start speaking. Ma'am, if you can unmute yourself, there you go.
Okay, well, hi. Thank you, everybody, for inviting me and letting me speak here for 1.5 minutes. I did send my concerns in, I think via email, but this is my first meeting with the City Council, and I appreciate everything that you guys do and the beautiful introduction. I'm the Director of Operations here at the Suburban Hotel on Wellesley Drive. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the area. We are right next to the Sonesta and to Rudy's Barbecue. I joined the team in June, and I come from Scottsdale, Arizona. I have been in the hotel business for 30 years, first as a manager and then as a corporate trader for Choice Hotels International. What concerns me here at the Suburban is we have so many issues with homeless folks coming through. I'm not sure if the clinic that's sitting in front of us has something to do with it, or that we're right off the 40, but it's started in the summer with, just being basically loitering. I have caught young people in our stairways doing drugs. I find needles on the property. We are an extended stay hotel. That means that we have families staying here with children. And they now bring to my attention on a regular basis, we don't feel safe, we don't feel safe. We had cars stolen just last week at 11 o'clock in the morning. One of our residents says, hey, there is somebody going around knocking, banging on cars and trying handles. By the time I got to him, I figured out where the person was. He had broken into a car. I was trying to sleep in it. And of course,
Thank you, ma'am. Your time is up.
I'm so sorry. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Joni Jones. Ms. Jones, please feel free to turn your video on, unmute yourself, and your time will begin when you start speaking.
Good afternoon. My name is Joni Jones. I'm the general manager at the Crown Plaza here in the Midtown area. I thank you for your time today. I never thought on a daily basis I would have to apologize for Albuquerque and the Midtown area. Panhandling guests in our parking lot, homelessness in their carts, trash loitering, and cars being broken into and stolen. My property spends about $20,000 a month on security for guests and associates inside and out of the hotel, and that is still not enough money spent. Tourism is one of the top 3 revenue generators in the state of New Mexico. The Midtown area is considered the heart of Albuquerque, and within the concentrated area here in Midtown, there are roughly 2,000 hotel and motel guest rooms, which are the largest cluster of guest rooms in the state of New Mexico. The exits from I-25 to Manal are very confusing, and the exits to University from I-40 heading east or west are not aesthetically pleasing and don't appear safe to our guests that are traveling to our area of town. This is not the lasting impression we should have on the families and the travelers that are driving through our state. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Ms.
ma'am.
Jones.
So Julian,
Madam
have the
President.
other 2 people joined us?
Madam President, no, they have not, so that will conclude general public comments.
Okay, thank you so much. We appreciate you, Mr. Moya. With that, counselors, we will move on to item number 5, which is question and answer period. And it appears that Counselor Jones has a question.
Madam President, I do not have a question.
Counselor Jones, you're on the script with a question.
Oh, let me look and see. I don't remember submitting a question.
Madam
If
President,
not, Counselor, then I will move on to Counselor Bassan. Counselor Gibson?
yes, maybe it would help for Counselor Jones. It reads on the script, questions for APD regarding the speeding study on Montgomery and plans to address the issue.
Thank you, Counselor Gibson.
Thank you, Councilor Gibson. I obviously do not have the most current script that's out there. So if the administration would like to answer some questions, we will present those to them.
Madam Chair, this is Isaac Padilla. Yeah, we'll see what answers that we can have. We don't have anybody here that's was part of that study, or so I'm not sure what we can be able to provide, but we can provide as much information as possible.
Thank you. And if need be, we will address this at the next meeting. There's no rush on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Jones. We will move on to Counselor Bassan.
Thank you, Madam President. I have 2 questions I was hoping to ask regarding the updated clean and green ordinance definitions. And I do understand that this is somewhat vague in some of the possibilities, but at the same time, understanding businesses differ greatly in size. how much do we expect this update to cost, putting the plastic with the new parameters of 4 millimeters instead of the just over 2 millimeters for plastic? And what are the latest thoughts on cleanliness when it comes to reusable versus non-reusable bags at this point in time?
Mr. Whelan, are you available to answer the question? Is anyone in the administration available?
I was muted. Council President Borrego and Council Bassan. So the first part of your question was, how does it affect different sizes of businesses? Well, we really don't know yet, because when the initial ordinance was put into place, we put it into place, and 6 weeks later we hit the pandemic, so we pushed a pause button on it, and we weren't able to do the study that's required by the ordinance. The ordinance requires us to do a study to see the effectiveness and to analyze how the ordinance affects all businesses, and we were unable to do that. So now that we're reenacting the ordinance, we're going to begin that study, so we can't really tell you that answer at this point. As far as cleanliness and how that affects everybody, when you bring a reusable bag into a store, usually you bag your own groceries. And when we pushed pause on this, nobody knew what the pandemic was. I mean, literally, nobody had any clue what was going on. So we pushed pause to keep our frontline workers safe during the pandemic and let them use whatever they needed to use. But now that we kind of know what it is, we know where we're going with it, we've worked with environmental health, we feel like using your own reusable bags and bagging your own grocery is a safe method to continue forward.
Thank you, Director. Madam President, a couple more follow-ups on that, please.
Go ahead, Counselor, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. As far as the study, we're in 30 days going to implement a new requirement for a different thickness of plastic. I guess what I am visioning, and this is me with my thoughts, so I'm willing to be corrected if that's the case, but these businesses have now purchased the thicker plastic. They're going to get rid of the thicker plastic that we have been utilizing, which some have looked at as a loophole. So now, is there 4 millimeters? Is it available? Is it going to cost more? I imagine it will. Is that something we want to do to our businesses? And really, Director, just to let you know, this is more of a rhetorical questioning at this point, because to me, we have businesses that financially right now, that's a challenge, I think. And I'm curious to learn more about the availability of 4 millimeter plastic, if that's even something that's going to be presented as an option. Is the study really going to produce information that we are hoping to obtain fairly, when right now we are still, we just had our next declaration given out, just a week ago or so for the emergency. And to me, it's still questionable. Do we want people bringing in their reusable bags, which some argue are kind of gross anyway? But I know where I go when people bring in the bags, the checkers are still doing the bagging. So there still is a high amount of contact. And if we're going to put that on businesses while also trying to preach some extra safety, I am concerned about it.
Council President Borrego and Council Bassan, yeah, I think it's one of those things where none of us saw this coming when it came to the pandemic. When this was instituted, we didn't see that coming. We instituted the new ordinance, and within 6 weeks, a lot of the bigger box stores had already had a loophole to it. And so we weren't even able to institute it and study it according to the ordinance. And according to the ordinance, we're to institute a definition, study it, and then there's a committee that's to be convened that can make recommendations back to council and back to the administration as to how to tighten, strengthen, or loosen the ordinance as it should be. When it comes to safety, we're working hand in hand with the Environmental Health Department. And when it comes to the new definition, yes, there are 4 millimeter bags available, and there are bags with stitched handlings available. So all those things have been made available. So we're not instituting something where it's unattainable. So I think that as we go forward, we can see what we can do, and we can actually do the study as intended by City Council prior to the pandemic. Had the pandemic not happened, we would have already had our study done, the recommendations would have already been made, and the definition probably would have been changed already. But because we weren't able to do that, we had to push pause and start over, and now we're going through the process per the ordinance.
Thank you, Director. And then, so what is the cost difference generally for these bags? Because that's going to be at the cost of the business owner, correct?
It really isn't up to the business owner. I mean, from a sustainability standpoint and a solid waste standpoint and environmental health standpoint, there's three things when it comes to sustainability. And when it comes to sustainability, it's always recycle, reuse, or repurpose, you know? And it's one of those things where we want people to repurpose or reuse. Recycling is really one of the last things we want people to do, because that still takes things out of the environment. You still got to have a truck to move it. You still got to have a truck to process it. For us, we want people to reuse and repurpose items. And that's what we want, is reusing more than just having a bag given to them. So, or a bag being purchased. We want people to reuse the items they have, reuse the bags you have, repurpose the items you have, because that is the essence of sustainability. And so there is a cost associated with it, but if you buy a bag or you're given a bag, well, if you bring it back to the store, then the store doesn't have to give you bags every time you come.
Fair enough. For the record, I do reuse all of my plastic bags, whether they were the flimsy ones or the newer ones. But my last question, Madam President and Director, is when do you expect to have enough time to do this study, given that I'm assuming you're not going to do the study until we start December 1st and then allow enough time, but I would like to confirm that.
So Council President Borrego and Councilor Bassan, per the ordinance, we have to have the study done by the end of this fiscal year. So we're instituting this new definition this month and next month, and we will start the study in December. So by the end of this fiscal year, the recommendation will be made back to council and back to the committee and the administration to see if they need to change, loosen, or tighten the ordinance.
Thank you, Director. Madam President, I have another question, but it looks like perhaps Councilor Davis might have a question on this topic if you choose.
Councilor Davis, go ahead. Is this related to this topic?
It is, Madam President, and thank you. And not a question, I just wanted to make a quick comment while we have the director. Excuse me. Director, I want to say thank you to you and the administration. We've sort of tussled back and forth over how best to implement this, both with businesses and with customers and with the city and how we do this. But I think that you're right, that we ought to pick up where we left off and try to finish that piece so that we can get some real data. But the pandemic did happen to give us some real data on how businesses might try to exploit some of the loopholes and rulemaking, et cetera. And so I applaud the administration for incorporating this before we get to that next phase. I think it certainly is the spirit of the law that we wrote to not allow those larger bags. And I know we had some provisional options for that, but they seem to have gotten way out of control, quite frankly. And so I appreciate the administration trying to work on this. I look forward to this study, but just wanted to say thank you for being proactive and trying to figure out a way to do that in the spirit of how we intended when we passed this law. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Davis. Councilor Brisson, I'll go back to you so you can finish with your next question.
Thank you, Madam President. DMD had sent out a couple of weeks ago on October 18th, a notice. It said, quote, security officer response to filming and open carrying of firearms on public property and filming on public property and open carrying firearms. There were 2 flyers that went out to the public as well as counselors, and I don't know where else they sent it. But on there, it said a list of employees should and are allowed to or are not allowed to, and employees, this is the parameters in which they can behave or what they can and can't do when being confronted with somebody else, whether it be on a film set or whatnot. And on both of those flyers, one, they say, quote, employee may not bring firearms into the workplace. This includes city vehicles and parking lots, end quote. I'm wondering, I mean, it's kind of a twofold question because I recognize that we want to be safer. I recognize that if the world had no firearms at all, perhaps that could be argued that no one would get shot. But nonetheless, there are similar business policies for, we have concealed carry, we have open carry. And I know on my end, I would like to know that some of the good guys have a firearm if I'm in a city building or I mean, I've just recently this week had a constituent reach out and there was with solid waste, there was a problem. And I don't know if I would blame the solid waste driver. And what if things got escalated? I mean, right now people are getting murdered and there's homicides, multiple in a day lately.
Legal sign on.
So I'm wondering what the policy is from the city standpoint as far as employees who own a open carry, or if they have taken all these, they're licensed and they have the permits, are they allowed to carry or not?
Madam Chair, this is Isaac. We've got legal that's in the conference room. I'm going to ask legal to go ahead and explain that because this is more around the law rather than what the policy is and how it's implemented. So
thank you.
Thank you, Madam President and Councilor Bassan. I'm actually here with the HR Director, Anthony Romero, as well. Essentially, to answer your question, this is a personnel rule that has been in place at the city for decades that prohibits employees from carrying firearms. That is an appropriate restriction that the city government can make on its own workforce. So I hope that answers the question. I can have Anthony answer any other questions you may have about the rule.
Thank you, Mr. Aguilar. Well, I respect that, but I'm still disappointed because I sure hope there's some good guys that can protect us in the event of a tragic happening at some point in time. But thank you very much.
Is that all, Councilor Bassan?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Those are the only questions that were submitted to my office for today's meeting. So with that, councilors, we will move on to our item number 6, which is our journal. I will move on to Councilor Gibson. Councilor Gibson.
I move approval for the October 18th journal.
Thank you, Councilor Gibson. Do I have a second? I'm looking to see who's raising their hand here. Councilor Bassan has a second. Are there any questions, councilors? I don't see any hands raised. So with that, councilors, we will move on to the vote. Ms. Ortega, are you there?
Yes, Madam President.
And I just want to, for the record, Councilor Harris has joined us.
Councilor Bassan.
Yes.
Councilor Benton.
Sorry, clarify, what is the motion?
It's for approval of the October 18th journal.
All right, yes.
Thank you. Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Gibson.
Yes.
Councilor Harris.
Yes.
Councilor Jones.
Yes.
Councilor Pena.
Yes.
Councilor Sena.
Yes.
Councilor Borrego.
Yes.
9-0.
Thank you, councilors. That passes on a 9-0. We will move on to item number 7, which is communications and introductions. Are there any changes to the letter of introduction this afternoon? Councilors, I will move. I have one, and I think Councilor Benton has a couple. So I'm going to begin. I move that the rules be suspended for the purpose of placing 050 on today's agenda for action. 050 is the appointment of Diane McDermott as the interim director of the Civilian Police Oversight Agency. And I need 2/3 of our councilors present to vote on this in order for it to pass. I have a second from Councilor Sena and Councilor Harris as well.
I have a question.
Councilor Harris.
It's designated an O, and I didn't read the legislation, I apologize, but it's not an ordinance, is it?
I don't believe it is. It's.
Okay.
Madam President, Councilor Harris, it is not. It is other communication. I apologize if the C may have been missing in one of the references, but is it other communication for this purpose?
Yeah, because we can't do an ordinance with immediate action. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Harris, for the question. Any other questions, councilors? I don't see any hands raised. So with that, councilors, we will move on to a vote.
Councilor Bassan.
Yes.
Councilor Benton.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Gibson.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Harris.
Yes.
Councilor Jones.
Yes.
Councilor Pena.
Yes.
Councilor Sena.
Yes.
Councilor Borrego.
Yes.
9-0.
Thank you, counselors. That motion passes on a, did you say 8-0 or 9-0?
9-0, Madam President.
Thank you. Counselor Benton, we will move on to you for the next item.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that to amend the letter of introduction to refer O2179 to the Finance and Government Operations Committee. O79 is amending the Open Space Trust Fund and Land Administration Ordinance to authorize the use of fund for open space acquisition and capital improvements within open space, amending a relevant cross-reference with the Open Space Advisory Board Ordinance, and amending Section 2.12.1 Capital Improvements Program with intent and scope to make permanent the 2% CIP set aside for open space acquisitions.
Thank you, Counselor Benton. We have a second from Counselor Davis. Are there any questions?
Madam President, I would just like to clarify this motion. We did receive a communication that was sent to forwarded to the counselors from, I believe, Ms. Schultz from the Open Space Advisory Board Chair, Twyla McComb. I don't know if you all saw that. I feel like reading at least part of this into the record. And then I have a comment before we vote on this.
Counselor, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is from Twyla McComb, the chair of the Open Space Advisory Board. She's not writing on behalf of the board because the board didn't have time to convene to take a vote on this. So she's consequently speaking for herself. O2179 makes fundamental changes to the Open Space Trust Fund, and these changes deserve careful discussion and consideration by both the advisory board and the city council. In fact, existing legislation gives OSAB the responsibility to comment on matters related to the trust fund. Yet the advisory committee was completely unaware of this legislation until one of our members saw it advertised in the Journal. Additionally, the ordinance bypasses normal legislative process. It has not been referred to the, she says, Land Use Planning and Zoning Committee. I believe this type of legislation customarily did go to FGO, as is customary with all legislation related to open space, despite the fact the changes being proposed will fundamentally alter the nature of the trust fund and open space land management. The original intent of the trust fund was to support major public open space, not incidental public spaces. And she lists several other questions. I think this really is an important comment coming from the a member or the chair of the OSAB. The Open Space Trust Fund is a legacy that's over 35 years old. Longstanding policy of the city of Albuquerque, and I think to put this on as a holdover for the next meeting, it is not going to be an adequate amount of discussion, and for that reason, I think it really does need to go to committee and follow a more deliberate course. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor. Looks like Counselor Harris may have a question.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a comment. I'm glad that we heard from the chairman of the Open Space Advisory Board. We have lots of ways of gaining input from people and considering this. I think we all know the issues, but we should carefully consider this, and we will. And sending it to a committee is not necessarily provides any better involvement of people, because we have lots of ways of reaching out and doing that. And we're going to have a new council, and I think that we should take this opportunity to consider this carefully with the council that we have. And so I'm against referring it. Let's all consider. We can defer it later. We can defer it later. But you know, the president has that discretion to do a holdover, and I think we should keep it the way it is.
It appears that Counselor Benton may have a rebuttal, and Counselor Bassan has a comment.
Yeah, I mean, the Open Space Advisory Board is for the purpose of advising us in these matters. Furthermore, the last time Counselor Harris was attempting to liquidate this fund, We did go through committee. There were multiple committee hearings. There was a lot of public input about where we were going with the Open Space Trust Fund. And that provided a venue that's much different than a council meeting and much more open to more people and more dialogue between counselors before it gets to full council. As we know, the full council oftentimes is just rather cursory discussion and not lengthy discussion. So I think the advisory board ought to be considered and ought to at least be able to give their opinion on this prior to our hearing.
Thank you, Councillor Benton. Councillor Bassan?
Thank you, Madam President. I can see both sides of what's being said right now. I mean, I can see how there needs to be some advisory from this board. I can see the sense of a new council's coming in. My situation, I think, runs into the fabric of so far committees. I haven't seen a lot of deliberation on committees almost ever. And so I think that I'm really having trouble because I feel like we just rush things through committees anyway. And then we end up at full council where we have the full discussion. We actually have the conversation, all 9 of us, to figure out where we stand and make the amendments and work through if there are amendments or just vote no or not. So I have a hard time supporting putting it in committee because I have still yet to see some of the value of committee, with all due respect to everybody.
Okay, Counselor, thank you for those comments. Boy, we have everybody jumping in. Looks like we have Counselor Davis, Counselor Harris, and Counselor Jones.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, let me just echo and say, precisely because we have all these counselors jumping in and we have members of the advisory board who have worked on these issues for a long time, and it hasn't had a lot of public vetting. This is a lot of money, and this Open Space Advisory Board and the Trust Fund was created to ensure that we prioritized the acquisitions and preserve the right amount of money for maintenance, et cetera. I can't argue that the system is broken. Last year, I think we, maybe 2 years ago now, we approved a whole new priorities plan that allowed for the use of these funds to be used for like the what do we call it? The Northwest Geologic Window at the petroglyphs, et cetera, and the President's District, et cetera. I think this would be a pretty radical change to a fairly big pot of money. And for that reason, I think proposals like this, and there's no urgency as far as I know, unless there's some big project that somebody wants to fund that we're not aware of. I'm not sure that that's necessary on a 2-week holdover. And so if it's a valid argument, I think we should send it through normal process and use the committee structure and give public notice and perhaps incorporate this into our budget next year, but certainly not necessary for the next 2 weeks. So I appreciate it, but I would be voting against this.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Harris and Counselor Jones, and then Counselor Gibson.
I've already spoken once, so I should probably let Counselor Gibson speak next, and I'll speak.
Counselor Counselor Jones, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe this is why this committee that reviews all of open space acquisitions and sales and whatever we do with them has been very experienced, and they really know what they're doing and why the city wants this done. I think sometimes we as a council tend to not pay as much attention and dig into the facts and the weeds and where things are supposed to be or intended to be. So I think there is zero harm in sending this, in fact, a huge benefit in sending this to that group for study and to report back to us. So I will not be voting in favor of this motion. Thank you.
Counselor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam President. I also believe that it should go to committee. And I will definitely agree that sometimes there are bills that do get rushed through committee. That doesn't mean it should be that way, but I see that happening in the committees that I'm a member of. So but you know what? This really is special. This is a long-time fund. And when we did, Councilor Benton mentioned this, when we did open this up a few years ago, we did spend quite a bit of time on it. And it's worth it. It really is worth the look. And the other thing too, is I'll just mention this, that anytime we try to rush things through, it always makes me a little bit nervous, even if it's something that I'm doing and can see the benefit of and skipping committee, basically is what we're talking about. But it does sort of present to the public, a potential for what are we missing and why are we missing that? So, and particularly for this particular subject, I think it's especially important that it does go to committee. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Gibson. Are there any other comments? I don't see any other comments. So with that, Counselor Benson. Oh, Counselor Harris.
Just very quickly, generally speaking, I've seen the committee process in the past be helpful, but in the era of Zoom, I don't want to disband committees just because we're Zoom for now. But what was nice about committees is that you'd have sort of a small setting, a little bit more intimate in that committee room, and you could open it up a little bit more. But there's no difference between a Zoom committee meeting and a Zoom council meeting. So in this case, I really don't see the benefit, or as long as we're on Zoom, I don't really see a whole lot of benefit for committees.
Counselor Harris, thank you. Counselor Benton and Counselor Jones.
Madam President, just to clarify, because there were some statements made by counselors, this motion is to send it to committee. So if you want it to go to committee, you need to vote yes on the motion. And if not, you need to vote no. But again, I think whether, committee is one thing. Committee is certainly has been a venue in the past for such discussions. But I think most importantly, the Open Space Advisory Board, that's the name of it. It's a pretty competitive board where people who are really into and have background in open space attend and make recommendations to us. And again, to emphasize, this bill is a momentous change to the open space trust fund and system, and even also to the role of the board is addressed in this. So we should hear from the board before we decide upon the role of the board, I would argue, please. So just to be clear, though, that if you're voting yes, you're voting to send it to committee. And I did, Mr. Melendez, just full disclosure, Mr. Melendez and I were back and forth trying to look at the history of this. I think it has been heard in both LUPS and FGO in the past, depending on what part of it is. I think the fiscal matters within it have been heard at FGO. And then some of the language regarding the board itself, the role of the board, and the prioritization process has oftentimes, in my experience anyway, been heard at LUPS. So I don't think it matters so much as that it get a sense of hearing after having heard from the OSAP.
It looks like Counselor Jones wants to weigh in, and Counselor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for correcting my misspeaking. This most definitely needs to go before the open space group, because they are, even though I don't always agree with them, but they are the ones who study and pay attention. And I think sometimes we political bodies tend to just vote. So I definitely believe this needs to go to the open space group. So thank you, Councilor Benton, for making that very clear. And thank you, Madam President.
Counselor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted, there's something else I thought of that really can add to the conversation and the education of everybody involved in this and any other piece of legislation, but we're talking about open space now. And that is the opportunity for public comments. And many times, particularly in committee, we will hear from subject matter experts. So that's, you know, really important for not only this, but anything else that's worth talking about in getting to committee and going through that full process. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Gibson. I too agree that I think that, and I'm sorry, Counselor Bassan, but I have to disagree with you. I think our committee structure is a very important process because it allows for a democratic process of input from the public. And while we don't always agree on, whether or not those committees should be, the outcome of those committees, rather, I think those processes are very important. But I also see, kind of, as you mentioned, you see both sides. I also see, as we did with the open space in Councillor Senna's district, when we had to kind of move something really fast, that we were able to, move something. And I'm talking about the open space that we purchased, and it was done during COVID and during the pandemic, but it was something that we had to really move on to ensure that we were able to obtain it. So, I mean, I think it's important that the democratic process is preserved, but it's also important that we sometimes, on a case-by-case basis, we are able to move things forward, expeditiously, I guess is the word. So I don't know. I see Councillor Bassan's hand up. So Councillor Bassan.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to clarify, I in no way disrespect the committee and the way that the process is supposed to work. I just want to clarify that maybe it's because I've been on council via Zoom pretty much the whole time, but I have yet to see the committee meetings actually pan out the way they were intended. And I don't think they're adding much to the democracy. And I hope that we can get back to that point. But I just wanted to clarify that.
You're in chair of the committee.
With Councillor Gibson, you're out of line. Thank you.
I know. Thank you.
So let's, I don't see any other hands up. So with that, I think we'll just go back to our sponsor, and if you have any closing remarks, then we will just take a vote.
I think it's Ike's motion, so I don't know if we really need closing remarks on something like this, but
not necessary from my standpoint.
Okay. So with that, we will move to our vote. Ms. Ortega.
Councillor Bassan.
No.
Councillor Benton.
Yes.
Councillor Davis.
Yes.
Councillor Gibson.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
no.
Councillor Jones.
Yes.
Councillor Pena.
No.
No. Councillor Senna.
No.
Councillor Borrego.
Yes.
Motion passes on a 5-4 vote.
Thank you, councillors. With that, we will move on to our 214, which is also Councillor Benton. Councillor Benton. Councillor Benton, would you like me to read it into the record?
I have it. Sorry, I didn't know I was muted. Move that the rules be suspended for the purpose of introducing R214 and referring it to the Land Use Planning and Zoning Committee. R214 is amending R17233, enactment number R21795, to extend the effective date of the interim procedure while the Neighborhood Association Recognition Ordinance is updated.
Are there any questions of Councillor Benton? I'm looking for hands and I don't see any, Councillor Benton. So I guess I would just mention that we need a second on this. Is there a second? Counselor Davis with the second. So we need 2/3 of our counselors to vote on this in order for it to pass. Counselor Benton, your hand is up again? Or is that from previous?
Yes, no, may I ask staff to speak to this and why it's important? Thanks. I think, I believe Ms. Perhaps Mr. Melendres.
Madam President, Councilor Davis, if Ms. Schultz or Ms. Morris want to chime in, I'll invite them to do so. But essentially, the City Council took up the neighborhood recognition ordinance earlier this year. It did not pass an updated ordinance. However, it had been extending interim guidelines that try to address some of the existing shortcomings within the narrow. So it's not setting long-term policy in the form of ordinance updates, but it's at least holding at bay, I think, some unintended consequences within the ordinance. And so this resolution would continue to hold those kind of unintended consequences at bay, one of which is to limit the ability for multiple associations to overlap over one another. The council hasn't made a final statement as a matter of ordinance as to how that should be handled. And so this would simply just preserve the ability to deal with that consideration moving forward at some point.
Any other questions or comments? It doesn't appear that anyone has their hand up. Counselor Harris.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, so what is this motion again?
Counselor Harris, the motion is that we, let's see, to extend the effective date of the interim procedure while the neighborhood association recognition ordinance is updated.
Well, this is the letter of introduction, right?
Madam President, if I'll just add something really quickly, if it's okay. So it's to add a resolution to the letter of introduction that would, if acted upon by the council at a later date, extend the interim guidelines for neighborhood associations. But the vote right now is just to add the bill to the letter of introduction.
And thanks for that. And by the way, I'm against this resolution. Here's why. Is there is a neighborhood association in my district which has been behaving terribly, that they're kind of disgraceful. And what they did is they took over the association by proxy because they didn't want a community center, although the neighborhood itself is in favor of the community center. I've walked that neighborhood many times. But what they did is they took it over by proxy. They actually went to a retirement home and paid the dues for these people to take over the neighborhood association. They took over the neighborhood association, and then they quickly amended the bylaws so no one else could vote by proxy anymore. And the neighborhood association is totally out of touch with the neighborhood. So I think there are appropriate times when, and I'm talking about the Singing Arrow Neighborhood Association, by the way. And I think there are appropriate times where a neighborhood association is totally out of touch with your own neighborhood, and there should be an overlap. So I think that I'd like at least give this neighborhood association that's forming in Singing Arrow an opportunity to get that done. And I'm not so sure it's a bad thing. I mean, it certainly does create a situation where there can be a little bit of confusion, but confusion is also part of democracy, the marketplace of ideas. And sometimes you get different ideas, and that's not always a bad thing. So I'm just going to vote against that because I'd like to slow down this extension, because it actually had the initial moratorium on overlapping neighborhood associations actually had a bad effect in my district.
Thank you, Counselor. I see Counselor Jones has a question or a comment.
I do, Madam President, and with your indulgence, please. I think we're all, majority of us are a little confused about what this does or what it doesn't do and what it will do if it passes and what if we vote no. May I ask Ms. Schultz, who obviously is intimately involved in all this, to explain in layman's terms what this does if we vote for or if we vote against, Madam President? I ask your indulgence.
Madam President, Councillor Jones, sure, I'd be happy to explain that for you. So leading up to the proposed rewrite of the Neighborhood Association Recognition Ordinance, which did not pass last month, there were a set of interim procedures put in place to deal with some of the kind of more immediate and glaring flaws in the existing narrow. One of the largest ones being the kind of confusion around the provision for overlapping boundaries. So a resolution was passed in 2017 that put in place some interim guidelines related to how neighborhood associations could form while the narrow was being updated. The council on several occasions has extended those interim regulations as the narrow took longer than anticipated to get to a draft format or a final format for consideration by the council. The most recent iteration of those guidelines is set to expire on December 31st of this year. And until some of those more kind of finicky procedures that exist in the narrow today can be worked out, if it's the will of the council through future legislation, this bill would again extend those interim regulations to December 31st of 2022. Again, I'll remind the council, much like Director Melendrez just did, this is just a vote to put this bill on the letter of intro. There would be no action taken on whether you would vote for or against those interim regulations this evening. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Ms. Schultz. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, with that, we will move on to our vote. Ms. Ortega.
Councilor Bassan,
Yes.
Councilor Benton,
Yes.
Councilor Davis,
Yes.
Councilor Gibson, Councilor Gibson, Councilor Harris,
No.
Councilor Jones,
Yes.
Councilor Pena,
No.
Councilor Sena,
No.
Councilor Borrego,
No.
Chair?
Councilor Gibson,
Yes, I'm sorry, I was muted. I'm sorry. My vote is yes.
thank you. Motion fails on a 5-4 vote because a rule suspension requires 6 votes.
Thank you. Okay, with that, councilors, we will move on. Councilor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move approval of the letter of introduction.
Second.
Thank you, councilors. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Ortega.
Councilor Bassan,
Yes.
Councilor Benton,
Yes.
Councilor Davis,
Yes.
Councilor Gibson,
Yes.
Councilor Harris,
Yes.
Councilor Jones,
Yes.
Councilor Pena,
Yes.
Councilor Sena,
Yes.
Councilor Borrego.
I'm sorry, yes.
Thank you, 9-0.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. So with that, councilors, we will move on to item number 8, which is reports of committees. Councilor Bassan.
Thank you, Madam President. The Finance and Government Operations Committee met on Monday, October 25th, and reports out the following items. In the matter of EC 440, 453, 454, and 457, that they be approved. In the matter of EC 443, 444, 445, 446, OC 43 and 44, that receipt be noted. In the matter of R 204, that it do pass. In the matter of R 208, that it be without recommendation. I make a motion to accept the committee report.
Thank you, Councilor. I'll second that. Are there any questions? If not, Ms. Ortega, we need a motion. I'm sorry, we need a vote.
Councilor Bassan,
Yes.
Councilor Benton,
Yes.
Councilor Davis,
Yes.
Councilor Gibson,
Yes.
Councilor Harris,
Yes.
Councilor Jones,
Yes.
Councilor Pena,
Yes.
Councilor Sena,
Yes.
Councilor Borrego,
Yes.
9-0.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. You always do such a fine job. We will move on to our next item, councilors, which is deferrals and withdrawals. Counselors, are there any deferrals or withdrawals at this time? I will move to Counselor Benton on R155.
Thank you, Madam President. R155 is a nuisance substandard dwelling or structure in need of abatement at 1804 High Street Southeast within the city. So ruined and damaged, dilapidated as to be a menace to the public comfort, health, peace, safety, and that is required to be removed. I move a deferral until February 7th of 22.
Thank you, Counselor Benton. Do we have a second? We have several seconds, Counselor Sena and Counselor Jones.
Thank you. And Madam President, I don't know if we've got someone from planning who could speak to this. My policy analyst, Nathan Molina, was trying to get an update on this prior to the meeting, but we ended up finding out on our own from the property owner that they're doing some work. I do see that Mr. Metzger is here. Maybe he can speak to it.
Mr. Metzger, welcome.
Hello,
By the
thank you.
way, Mr. Metzger, you did a fine job picking up political signs during the election. So thank you for that.
We try. Thank you, Madam President, Councilor Benton. Yes, the owner has done some work and recently obtained some permits this week to begin the indoor remodel and rehab of the property. We're in support of this deferral.
Counselor Benton, did you have any other questions?
No, thanks. Thanks, Mr. Metzger. Yeah, it seems like they're making a good effort and they suggested February. So we'll just go ahead and check back in with them at the beginning of February if that's the will of the council.
Thank you, Counselor Benton. So we have a motion and a second to defer this until February 7th, 2022. Counselors, I need a vote. Ms. Ortega?
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego,
Yes.
9-0 on the deferral.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. We will move on to item number D, which is Counselor Bassan and Counselor Pena, R190. And I'm not sure who would like to present this.
Thank you, Madam President. R190, approving an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Albuquerque, the County of Bernalillo, and the Albuquerque Public School District Board of Education to reform the Albuquerque Bernalillo County Government Commission as the local government coordinating commission to include the City of Albuquerque, the County of Bernalillo, and the Albuquerque Public Schools as the voting members. I would like to move deferral until January 19th, 2022.
Thank you, Counselor Bassan. We have a second from Counselor Sena. Are there any questions? It doesn't appear so. So we will move on to Ms. Ortega for a vote. Ms. Ortega?
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego,
Yes.
9-0 on the deferral.
Thank you, counselors. That is deferred until January the 19th. With that, we will move on to our consent agenda. Are there any changes to the consent agenda, counselors? I don't see any hands raised in the queue. Let's see, I'm sorry. I almost called you Miss Gibson. Counselor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam President. Are there, I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you, counselor. I'll second that. Ms. Ortega, we need a vote on this item.
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego,
Yes.
9-0.
Thank you, counselors. That motion passes on a 9-0 vote. So we will move on to our announcements, which is item number 11. Counselor Bassan.
Thank you, Madam President. There will be a Finance and Government Operations Committee meeting on Monday, November 8th at 3 p.m. via Zoom video conference.
Thank you, Counselor Bassan and Counselor Sena.
The Public Safety Committee meeting scheduled for Tuesday, November 9th is canceled.
Thank you, Counselor Sena. Counselor Jones.
Thank you. There will be a Land Use Planning and Zoning Committee meeting on Wednesday, November 10th at 3 p.m. via Zoom video conference.
Thank you, Madam. Public hearings is our next item, and there are none, counselors, so we will move on to item number 13, which are approvals. Counselors, our first item regarding our approvals, which is item number 13, is EC 458, Ground Lease and Development Agreement between the City of Albuquerque and Amazon.com Services LLC. I will move approval of this item. I need a second. I have a second from Counselor Bassan. Thank you for that second, Counselor. I will move on to the administration because I think they have a little bit of a presentation before we go to a vote.
Budget bill, right? No, it's Nick Allen. Go ahead, Nick. Yeah.
Counselors, I can certainly bring that up for you.
Good evening, Nika. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Good evening. My name is Nika Allen. I'm the Director of Aviation for the City of Albuquerque. And I have this presentation. Excuse me one.
Ms. Allen, are you having some technical difficulties? There you go. Thank you.
There we go. All right, so thank you, counselors. Today I'd like to present to you the Amazon Ground and Development Agreement and Lease. A little about the agreement overall. Amazon is looking to lease 5 acres of land at the Sunport, which will consist of a air cargo facility, and they will be constructing and operating the facility themselves. This does allow for development of vacant land at the Sunport and an expansion of our cargo operations. The initial term of the agreement will be 10 years with 3 possible 5-year renewal options for a maximum term of 25 years. The City of Albuquerque, through its aviation department, will also be extending the footprint of the cargo apron for use by Amazon and other cargo operators at the Sunport. The cost of that project will be approximately $11.4 million, and $6.6 million of that has been secured through federal funding. The economic impact of the ground lease only is estimated to generate about $55,000 a year in rents for that property. It'll be increased by 2% each year, and at each interval of a 5-year expansion past the first 10, that will be adjusted through fair market value accordingly. Our next steps for this project is council approval today, construction submittals and permitting, and both projects have a targeted completion date of August of 2022. Any questions?
Counselors, do we have any questions? Counselor Harris.
Thank you. I really am glad that Amazon's coming. I think it's good for the City of Albuquerque. I see that we're not doing any kind of, incentives in terms of IRBs or anything, nor should we for Amazon. But I do question whether or not we should be giving Amazon below market rent, which it sounds like we are. 50,000 a year is,
One thing I can say, I didn't point this out, but I can go back to, let me go back to this. It's not actually a below market rent. So if you look at the property that this, oh wait, sorry, I haven't shared it here. If you look at the property, I hope you can see my screen now. Here is the full 5 acres. Oh. Why is it doing this? Uh-oh.
so while you're doing that, so is Amazon building the buildings?
Yes, Counselor, Amazon is building the building.
Okay, so we're just leasing it as vacant land. We're not leasing it as improved property.
We are leasing it as vacant and unimproved land, which it is. This land has not been improved at all. And in fact, it's actually on a hillside, which is why the rent rate is, as you have said, discounted, because it will take millions of dollars to bring the site to make the site pad ready.
Okay, then that makes me feel better. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Counselor Davis, do you have a question?
Yeah, Madam President, I appreciate that. I just wanted to point out sort of what Councilor Harris did there. That this is just a land lease and not like an economic development project that we normally see. But Madam President, Director Allen, remind me that as I understand it, bringing Amazon to the cargo facility would allow and require us now to expand the cargo apron for this project, or to allow for future cargo projects as our city grows. Is that right?
Madam President, Counselor Davis, yes, you are correct. We are completely out of space in our existing cargo facility and our existing cargo apron. So for this project and other future projects, as the airport in our city grows, we will be required to continue to build out our facilities. We will be increasing our facilities just through the cargo ramp, but we could have had to build the building ourselves. So we're actually quite happy that someone else will be building the building, which will be saving the city that money up front.
And thank you. And Madam President, I just want to say, I like the way this deal is structured. It's good for us. It brings in new jobs for the airport area, for our part of town. And folks will be living all over the city. And I suspect folks, as far as Valencia County, will be coming up here to do that work, spend their money in our town and go back home. So I like this, and also want to commend Director Allen. I think our airport, I'm probably wrong when I say this, but I think our airport is about 100% ground lease now. And so we're going to have to start thinking about where we go and what we do next, and doubling down on that fast track on the west side of Double Eagle as well. So congratulations, doing a great job. Lots of economic development happening in our parts of Southeast Albuquerque, and we're really excited to see it. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Davis. Any other questions or comments? I don't see any other comments or questions, Ms. Allen. I just want to commend you for the work and also economic development in expanding this huge opportunity to the airport. I see it also as a win-win for both the Sunport and Double Eagle Airport, because in the future I see nothing but opportunity on the west side. I know it's in Councilor Sena's district, or just outside of Councilor Sena's district, and sort of in both of our districts. But one of the things that I was honored to be able to do before his passing was work with Councilor Sanchez, and then more recently with Councilor Sena on an economic development study, which phase 2 is in process, by the way, for Double Eagle Airport. So I see nothing but opportunity, and I hope that our future councilors will have that vision and carry through with some of that work that we've done. So thank you for that, and we will move forward with no other comments or questions from councilors. We will move to Ms. Ortega for a vote.
Counselor Bassan.
Yes.
Counselor Benton.
Yes.
Counselor Davis.
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego,
Yes.
9-0.
Thank you, counselors. Item A passes on a 9-0 vote. We will move on to item B, OC 50. This is appointment of Diane McDermott as the interim director at the Civilian Police Oversight Agency. I move a confirmation. Do I have a second? I have several seconds. Thank you for those seconds, counselors. I see Counselor Sena and Counselor Davis. Do we have any questions of the administration, counselors, or would you like a presentation? Counselor Sena, is that a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I just want to clarify because I know that I know we're also doing an update when it comes to the ordinance, but there's no real established official sustainability when it comes to an interim or acting should anything happen with the director. So I know that we're going to work on that, but I hope that that's really considered just so that we have that in place.
Mr. Melendres, do you want to respond to that?
Madam President, I'll just add that to Councilor Sena's point, the council does have a bill providing updates to the Civilian Police Oversight Ordinance that was introduced at the last meeting that will be going before committee. So you will have an opportunity to address that in this process.
Counselor Sena, I hope that answers your question. Counselor Benton?
Thank you, Madam President. I was just wondering if Ms. McDermott had any words for us as to how she sees this interim appointment, and we appreciate her willingness to take it on.
Thank you, Counselor Benton. Ms. McDermott, would you like to speak?
Sure. Thank you, President Borrego and counselors. I have been with the CPOA for about 15 years, and I've seen it through a lot of different changes, and I've been a part of a lot of those different changes. So I feel very confident that I can go ahead and assist the agency in the transition. We're very sad to see Director Harness leave, and it's going to be big shoes to fill, but I will do my best and certainly assist the board in its role in selecting a permanent director while I fill that interim seat.
Counselors, any other comments from Ms. McDermott? Ms. McDermott, I just want to thank you for stepping up and really filling this really important role. There's serious responsibilities with the Police Oversight Board, and I just want to commend you for that. And it's wonderful to have a woman step up, and we look forward to your leadership.
Thank you very much for this opportunity and the vote of confidence. I appreciate it.
Thank you, madam. Okay, counselors, I don't see any other hands raised. So with that, we will move on to a vote.
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena, Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego.
Yes.
Counselor Pena, I had trouble hearing you. Just want to confirm your vote was yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. 9-0.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. We will move on with that to final actions, counselors. This is item number 14. Counselors, I would like to move up 2 items on the agenda. Counselor Gibson had asked that her item be looked at, moved up earlier. That's the redevelopment study, item E, which is R207. And also I would like to move up before that, because we have some people that are leaving that wanted to speak on item FS2, which is M11. So Counselor Gibson, if you're okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and move up item M11 first, and then we'll come back because there's individuals that are waiting to speak on this. And there are some of the staff that have to leave at 4:30, so there's not a lot of time on that. So counselors, we have a floor substitute for the City of Albuquerque's reaffirming its strong commitment to end the drivers of crime, including criminal firearm use and recidivism. I move a do pass. And counselors, you have some amendments in your iPad, and I believe that Counselor Pena also has a couple of amendments that she wants to present. So counselors, I need to have a second on the floor substitute, if I could, and then we will move to our amendments.
Madam President, counselors, the floor substitute 2 was approved at the prior council meeting and then postponed to tonight's
Oh,
meeting.
that's right. That's right. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. So we will then just move to our amendments. And there was an amendment in your iPad, counselors. I hope you all read it. But actually, before we move to our amendments, because there are some folks that want to speak, would it be okay with everyone if we just have them speak and then we come back to our amendments? Does anyone have any heartburn with that? If not, then we are going to move to, there's a couple of speakers, and I know that one of them had to leave at 4:30, so I hope he hasn't left yet.
Madam President, I do believe I believe his last name was Bowie from the DA's office. I do believe he has left the meeting.
He did leave. Oh, darn. Okay. Well, then I guess we'll just ask Commander Legendary. I cannot say that name. Legendary? Is that right? And Attorney Carlos Pacheco, if they could care to speak on this, and then we'll come back to our amendments.
Madam President, this is Commander Roger Legendry. And at this time,
Legendry, thank you so much.
thank you.
I'll get it right. Nobody can pronounce my name either, so it's all good.
We look forward to continuing the work on this memorial, and especially as it pertains to how it relates to our Metro Crime Initiative. It's aligning itself with pushing for legislation and the partnerships with the prosecutors, which is going to strengthen gun crime penalties and detain gun offenders until trial. With that being said, you know, there's that support from APD that we definitely want to continue to work on reducing that gun violence.
Thank you. Mr. Pacheco, are you there as well?
Madam President, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I echo that sentiment. I would encourage the council to adopt. The city, quite frankly, has some serious crime issues, and APD is struggling hard. And I don't have much further to add. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pacheco. And I'm really sorry, counselors, that we missed Taylor Bowie, because he really did have some important information to share with us, but he had to leave. So with that, counselors, if you have questions of any of these two gentlemen, we will go back to our amendments. And counselors, I have the first amendment, which was in your iPad, and I don't know if Mr. Moya has that and is able to share that on the screen.
Madam President, I believe the amendments were from Councilor Pena. I don't have any amendments from you, Madam President.
Oh, okay. All right, Councilor Pena, do you want to, Mr. Moya, do you want to show Councilor Pena's amendments then? And we'll have her go ahead and move those forward.
Yes, Madam President. Councilor Pena, does it matter which one goes first?
It doesn't matter. I think the first ones probably, thank you, Madam President. I think the first ones would be the ones that were in the iPad. And then I have a couple of others, and I don't know if they actually made it into the iPad. So what I would do is I've been working with Julia on these amendments. So I would ask that she probably talk about the amendments and just explain them for us. Or Chris Melendez.
Ms. Colladon, are you there?
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, I am. So the first amendment you have in front of you, as it says in the explanation section below, seeks to encourage the governor, the legislature, the district court judges, and the district attorney, as well as the New Mexico Attorney General and the U.S. attorneys to consider all means available to them to address the issues of violent crime and property crimes, dialing back some of the very specific instructions that were provided in the original language of M11, the floor substitute number 2.
And Madam President, that would be floor amendment number 1.
Thank you, Counselor Pena. How many floor amendments do you have?
Just 2.
Okay, thank you. Counselors, are there any questions? Can I see Counselor Sena might have a question, or is that a second?
That was a second, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor Sena. Appreciate that. Any other questions? That floor amendment? If not, Ms. Ortega for the vote.
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris, Counselor Harris, Counselor Jones.
Yes. And yes for me, sorry, I was muted.
Thank you. Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Thank you. Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego.
Yes.
9-0 on Amendment 1.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. Counselor Pena.
Thank you, Madam President. So this will be floor amendment number 2, and I apologize, I didn't get these earlier to you, but if Julia could explain these as well, I would appreciate it. Thank you, Julia.
Yes, Madam President and Counselor Pena. So this amendment inserts some additional information to the whereas clauses of the memorial. First, it adds some additional information about the constitutional amendment that was passed in 2016. Second, it adds some language about the amendment and new provisions of Rule 403, which enforces the Constitution's requirements to deal with the crime problem in New Mexico. And finally, the third change makes a strike and adds in some additional information, modifying the language again, which is somewhat specific to make it a more broad directive that these criminal justice system entities address causes of recidivism and aid in the reform of the criminal justice system.
I'm sorry, Counselor, I'm not sure I understand that last one, that last sentence or that last portion. Could you clarify that, please?
Madam President, absolutely. So this is to kind of say that, you know, it takes out some of the real direct language, and it's to talk about all the issues surrounding the criminal justice system, you know, just not from a prosecution perspective, I guess, but to underlying the underlying issues and to aid in the reform of the criminal justice system. So it's kind of just broadening the language to say, let's look at everything and not just some real specific items.
Okay. All right. It looks like there's some questions also from some other counselors, maybe regarding this particular amendment, Counselor. We have a question from Counselor Sena and Counselor Bassan as well. So Counselor Sena?
Mine's just a motion so that we can continue the conversation for a second. I'm sorry.
Okay. Counselor Bassan?
Thank you, Madam President. I was trying to read through it real quick. I don't think we had it again earlier or emailed to us, but the first part I saw about the if it's in a felony case that people won't be held in jail if it's due to the fact that they can't afford a money bond?
Madam President, Councillor Bassan, it's actually not that if they just can't afford it, that shouldn't be the sole reason to keep them. So, I mean, if you were going to release someone else who could get out on bond and they can afford to get out on bond, even if it was a felony charge, then if you keep them just because they can't afford it, it's kind of more of an equity issue.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from counselors? I don't see any other questions. So with that, I guess, Counselor, we will move on to our vote. Ms. Ortega?
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego,
Yes.
9-0 on Amendment 2.
Thank you, Counselor. I guess that's the last of our amendments. So we will move back, counselors, to our floor substitute. And are there any questions with as amended? I don't see any questions in the queue. So with that, Ms. Ortega, we will move on to the vote.
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego,
Yes.
9-0 on FS2 M11 as amended.
Thank you, counselors. With that, we will move on to Counselor Gibson's item, which is R207. Counselor Gibson.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I'd like to move a due pass on R207. This is the resolution that will be accepting a study that was done on the Manal redevelopment area.
Thank you,
And I
Counselor.
think- Yes, ma'am. Can you?
I will second your motion.
Thank you. I think that it might be wise to go ahead and turn this over to Miss Petra Morris. There she is. And I believe we also have the principal, one of the principals from CP, Jackie Fishman, with us. But let's hear from Miss Morris first, if you wouldn't mind, Madam
Ms.
President.
Morris, are you there?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, councillors. Thanks for the opportunity to speak on this project. Resolution 207 is, as Councillor Gibson mentioned, accepting the study. This study grew out of, I think our public comment earlier was a good description of the issues in the Manal area. A significant increase in crime and concerns associated with that. In the Manal Boulevard area, it's an important area in terms of economic development. We had, I think, that there are 2,000 hotel rooms in the vicinity, in the uptown vicinity, as well as a large number of small businesses within the industrial area. And so this is an important part of our economic realm of Albuquerque, but it's also an area that's been seeing some really significant disinvestment in recent years. Our poster child for this was the Range Cafe, leaving Manal after 20 plus years in that location. And so this study is part of a 3-phase approach. It's the first phase of the approach. For this first phase, we were looking at the larger study area. So it's bounded by San Mateo on the east, I-40, I-25, and Candelaria as the northern boundary. And in looking at this larger area and only the commercial and industrial properties within that area, not any of the single family residential, it looked at a business and retail analysis, included land use and zoning research for the area, 2 community meetings, a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities or SWOT analysis, as well as a website where we were able to take comment from the community. And in looking at all of these issues, the report that's before us contains a number of recommendations. One of those recommendations is that as the future phases, be a metropolitan redevelopment area be considered for Menaul Boulevard, but for a much smaller subset of this large area that was studied. The MRA is recommended to be the properties that front Menaul between I-25 and the North Diversion Channel. It also makes some recommendations that are not connected to an MR, such as some improvements for lighting in the area, some key locations for cameras to be placed, trail improvements, a substation, and field briefings to occur in the area, as well as some transit stop improvements. And so that's a whistle stop run through of the report. So I'm available for any questions.
Are there questions of Ms. Morris, councilors? I see Jackie Fishman in the queue, and I'm wondering if she's waiting to speak as well. Councilor Gibson?
Yes, we do have Miss Fishman who led this study, and I think it would might be helpful to hear from her for a few minutes, if she wouldn't mind.
Ms. Fishman?
All right. Thank you, Madam President and councilors. Jackie Fishman with Consensus Planning. Thank you for letting me speak. I don't have a lot to add. I think this was a good project and a very important one for our central Albuquerque area. I'm anxious to start on the next phases of the project. I think we had a good range of recommendations, as Petra mentioned. Some of them have to do with MR designation, but several others aren't dependent on MR. And I think it helps address a lot of the concerns that we heard from the business owners and other participants that we met with and talked to. And also, you know, we did a business owner survey too. So there's a tremendous amount of concern about crime in the area, disinvestment, in addition to the Range restaurant. Several other restaurants have closed along the Menaul corridor. And that's why we really focus the MR area, at least our recommendation to be from I-25 to the diversion channel and those properties facing Menaul. I think it would benefit the area, hopefully encourage the existing business owners not to move out. We heard from a lot of hotel owners that they're just having nonstop crime issues, vandalism, and a lot of complaints from their patrons. So we're hoping that this is going to help this area a lot.
Thank you, Ms. Fishman. Councilor Gibson, I wondered, is the redevelopment official also with us to speak? Karen Iverson?
I don't know. I don't see her on here, but I don't see everyone.
Madam President, Pat Montoya, she is not here today.
Okay. But I can add that we did receive a letter from her complimenting the report. So that I take that as high praise from
Thank you, Councilor. Mr. Director Montoya. Director Montoya, did you want to add something?
I did not, Councilor.
Okay, with that, Councilor Gibson.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. This really is an area, it's been stated several times, it's an important area to the city. It's right at the crossroads of I-25 and I-40, highly visible. And, you know, as I stated during the LUPS meeting, that there's still a lot of investment there, long time, generational, spanned in generational investment there. And we would like to stop, curtail this investment before it gets to such a point where it's going to be even more difficult to bring back the area. So anyway, I really urge everyone's support on this. It's a good report. If you get a chance, I really hope you'll take a look at it. Really interesting revelations here. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Gibson. I don't see that any counselors have any questions or comments. So with that, I just want to remind Counselor Gibson that when I was first elected, she and I drove the area and talked about a redevelopment study for this particular area. And I wonder if she remembers that. But, it's wonderful to see that this is moving forward. I think that, as a former redevelopment official for the city, it's important to note that a lot of our areas, our older areas of town, are in decline, and they're in need of a lot of services and a lot of improvements. So I'm glad to see that this area is being looked at, and that we as a city value these older neighborhoods. So I'm happy to support this, Councillor Gibson. With that, I'm going to go ahead, unless Councillor Gibson has something else, I'm going to go ahead and move to a vote. Ms. Ortega.
Councillor Bassan,
Yes.
Councillor Benton,
Yes.
Councillor Davis,
Yes.
Councillor Gibson,
Yes.
Councillor Harris, Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Jones,
Yes.
Councillor Pena,
Yes.
Councillor Sena,
Yes.
Councillor Borrego,
Yes.
9-0 on R207.
Thank you, Counselor. So that passes on a 9-0 vote. And I just also wanted to make a mention of, the redevelopment fund, which is a small fund. And I know that I won't be serving on council in the future, but I would recommend highly that the council take a look at that fund and just, because the needs are so great and that fund is very limited. So I would just put that on the table, and I'm sure Ms. Iverson would have something to say about that if she were here tonight. So councilors, with that, we are going to move on to under final actions, 050. And this is Councillor Davis and Councillor Benton. Would one of you like to make the motion?
Sure, Madam President. For purposes of discussion tonight, I will move approval of move it to pass for item 050.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. And it looks like Councillor Benton seconds that motion. We have a motion to defer until January 19th. And we have a second, Ms. Ortega.
No.
Madam President.
I'm sorry, Ms. Borrego, Madam President.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself on the script. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, ma'am. And if it pleases the president, the administration has a very brief slide presentation. The council has gone back and forth about this, and we've had a lot of discussion during budgets and otherwise about how we better account for and are transparent with reconciliations and budget transfers within the budget during the year. And then we've gone back and forth with the administration nearly 9 months now on trying to identify exactly how much money is moved outside of the budget process. And we learned, quite frankly, that the city didn't have a process for tracking that outside of the one-on-one items that were done. And so we've reached a proposal that we'd like to present to the council this evening and take any comment that would allow the administration to begin reporting to the council on a regular basis when it moves money from an appropriated fund to an alternative use, even when that's outside of the requirements to come to council. And so we would like to have the administration present that very briefly this evening. I think it's a half dozen slides just about how the process would work. And if the council is consenting, we would be willing to withdraw this bill at this time and reconsider it as part of the budget process next year once we have more data. And so if it pleases the president, I'd like to ask the administration to do that very brief presentation.
Councilors, is there anyone opposed to that? I don't see anyone opposed, so we will move to the administration for that presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair and councilors. I'm going to share my screen. 1 second. And Madam Chair, I'm Lawrence Davis, the City Budget Officer, DFAS. Let me get this started for you. I think it may take a second. All right, hopefully you can see the screen. So like Madam President, like Councilor Davis said, we have a brief presentation for you today. And what I'll be presenting is a proposed solution for a request from the sponsors of O2150. And we're going to call this kind of throughout the presentation as a quarterly savings use report. And I'll get started. So what we did receive and what we heard, the administration met with the sponsors of O2150, and what we're willing to add to the OMB's quarterly projections report is additional information. So at the very basis, what was the request? And as Councilor Davis mentioned, it's for additional information for the use of funding from one main budget category to support the other main budget category and vice versa. The main categories that Councilor Davis was referring to are often referred to are above the line, which are personnel budgeted costs, and below the line are operating budget costs or transactions. For example, the use of personnel funding to support a contract, repair, or supply purchase or purchases. In the end, the administration agrees. The administration agrees to provide additional information for activity that uses savings from one main budget category to support another, and attach this to OMB's quarterly reporting. And to give you some background information, councilors, where do the savings come from? Where are the savings derived from? So vacancy savings, we often refer to, and we gave a presentation to councilors at the request of Councilor Bassan a few months back. So these vacancy savings are derived from the amount of savings above the salary savings amount established for each department. For example, Department X has an initial personnel budget of $100 and has a salary savings rate of 10% for FY22. So OMB will budget $90 for Department X's personnel costs. Any vacancy savings derived from vacancies, retirements, and just separations above the $10 that was not appropriated can be used for other things, for other departmental needs. So a few examples, vacancy savings for FY21 and the first quarter of FY22 were high, of course, because of hiring freeze and because of the slowdowns. We did pull back a lot in FY21. And as you'll see below, that's why we were able to continue the services that we were going through the pandemic. The same shortages in labor market as the public and private sector are experiencing across the country. So in these hard to recruit positions, and I think we've seen a few of them, the engineering, the planning, the accounting, bus drivers. So all these positions account for higher vacancy rates, and that's where these vacancy rates are derived from. Another good example is cyclical issues in departments like APD and AFR. We budget as accurately as possible, but are very conservative with our hiring estimates when we budget for these. So even though they have to go through the academy or start mid-year, we're really conservative. So if they're anticipating starting mid-year, we might budget for them for 9 months. If they have to go through the academy, we're going to start budgeting for them at the beginning of the academy. So there's sufficient budget to cover any of those cyclical hiring issues. And that covers the vacancy savings component of it. So operational savings is really easy. Operational savings are derived from unused contractual, repairs and maintenance, travel, supplies, etc. below the line operational amounts that just remain unused. And often here, we may have a contract that for a specific vendor that the services are no longer needed, or it went out for RFP and we now get it at a reduced cost. Our department staff may not travel as much. So that's where the operational savings are derived from, that we use to offset some of, to go above or below the line for those savings. So the next slide, counselors, is why is the money moved between budget categories? And we have a few examples here. So the current practice is when unexpected or unplanned expenses occur, departments must manage within their current appropriations. We don't give them additional appropriations. And some examples include if an HVAC system failure occurs, the respective department must fix the failure and absorb the unexpected costs within its current appropriation, which in this case might be personnel savings. A very real example is the example here at City Hall. We had some issues with the HVAC system. DMD had to absorb that cost last year and get it fixed immediately. So we have, cooling or heating in the winter. Another example is when someone quits or retires from an essential position and we can't find a good hire immediately, we need to replace them with temporary workers, which is contractual services. So we use personnel vacancy savings and hire temporary workers for contract dollars with our contract dollars. Another example for emergencies, in FY21, this enabled us to continue operations despite serious shortfalls in tax revenue. So as you know, in the previous slide, the administration implemented a hiring freeze, really slowed down hiring so we could continue to pay for those contractual obligations that we had. Last example, we might move operational to personnel in order to make new positions or wage adjustments, which have been especially important for retaining people and creating career ladders in this very competitive labor market. So sometimes what we do is you say, we have certain individuals or classes that we really want to hold on to them or give them, X amount an increase. Can we sacrifice part of our contractual services, repairs, maintenance to perform that? And as long as it's budget neutral, yeah, that's fine with budget. So what they'll do is, use contractual services to give X employer a certain class of employees increases. As long as it's budget neutral, budget's fine with it. And in addition, this information is tracked year to year, so we can adjust the budget request based on prior year spending. And not to go too far into it, I want to make it kind of a brief presentation, but we gather all this information during our budget requests and during the budget cycle. So now in December, we'll issue the budget forms and all the departments have to report all this information back to us, and it aligns year to year. So the next, so what's the solution? So what's the solution to capturing all this? And as Councilor Davis said, there was no standardized report prior to this. So the solution is additional information will be included in OMB's quarterly report and will itemize the use of savings from one main budget category, i.e. personnel, to the other, operating and vice versa. So savings activity that cross the theoretical budget line, above the line represents, of course, personnel, and below the line represents operational costs. And any use of savings that cross the line will be captured in this new report. There will be no dollar threshold as of now. This will allow for additional information and account for all transactions that cross the line. So whether it's $1, whether it's 10,000, whether it's $1 million, it's going to be included in this report to provide counsel and the administration the necessary information that we want to derive from this report. Next, the additional information will be organized by department, program, department ID. So if counselors or the administration wanted to say, this specific department ID within DMD or our animal welfare, I want to know what they're doing. And if we see a very long list coming from a specific department or department ID, you can address those issues and dig into the details more. The additional information will also contain savings and use descriptions. So where was it derived from and what are you going to use it for? The council will also receive a final fiscal year end report that captures the activity for the entire fiscal year. So as you know, counselors, you don't receive a fourth quarter projection report. We actually report actuals at that point. but you will receive a comprehensive final report for the quarterly savings use report. So how are we going to accomplish this? So the administration will issue a directive creating the framework, methodology, timelines, and responsibility for the administration of the report. And just to outline real quick some brief benefits of the quarterly savings use report. It provides additional information, additional insight into what the administration is using for potential above the line and below the line activity. Will serve as additional budget management tool. And I think Councilor Davis specifically mentioned this. We want additional information so we can manage the budget in a better way, in a better plan. It would be also an additional planning tool. And finally, provide greater insight for the compilation of future fiscal year's budget. So if we see X department and they had 30 or 40 above the line and below the line transactions, like what's going on there? Maybe we need to look at that department and help them and budget more accurately in future fiscal years. So councilors, and to end with the presentation, this is a screenshot of the proposed report, and it's literally a savings from and a savings to. So the blue highlighted columns and rows, the information, and this is a snapshot. I'm going to show you a bigger report in a minute, because we kind of try to capture as many departments as we could to give you a flavor of what the report would really look like. So the blue highlighted is a savings from. So we start off with the numeric ID for the savings from, and this is important. You're going to see this both in the savings from and the savings to, because let's say, for instance, let me back up. This captures the many-to-one or the one-to-many relationships that some of these transactions may have. So let's take animal welfare. They may want to use savings, contractual savings, repairs and maintenance, supplies, and travel from all four categories, and say, we want to increase the salaries, increase the compensation for these individuals. So that would have a many-to-one relationship, and that's why this numeric ID is really important for capturing that. And if, let's say, all those four categories amounted to $100,000, it's only going to be, of course, one. It's only going to relate to one in the savings to. So that's what allows us to capture that and make sure that aligns. The next columns are simply department, program, department ID. You get the description of where were the savings derived from, and in this case, vacancy savings. So vacancy savings, and we could have a comment box off to the side, and that provides additional information also. The final column is the amount of savings, how much. So how much are you gonna use in vacancy savings? And the orange highlighted is simply the savings to. Okay, what are you gonna use it for now? And numeric is the same, like I explained. Okay, how much are you gonna use and where? Again, it gives you the department ID, the department, program, and department ID. And then it gives you the general use description again. Okay, so you said you're gonna use vacancy savings for lease payments. Okay, now provide me a little bit more detail. In the second one, for animal welfare, you're gonna use vacancy savings, $27,018. And what are you gonna do with it? You're gonna use it for temp service contracts. So if you or the administration wants more detail, they can dig down into this. And of course, this is always the plan. So if a department says, yeah, well, the plan was to use $27,000 and we only used $25,000, that's kind of up. That would be up to the department, but this is the general plan to capture for you the activity between the above the line and below the line. And we're capturing it both ways, counselors. So typically, I know some other entities like capturing it. Hey, just tell me what you're going to use the above the line savings from for the below. But this report is actually capturing it both ways. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I want to share with you what the report, that's a brief snapshot of the report. And I want you to see kind of the way the full report may look. And of course, we could always work with this if you wanted to see it a different way and maybe a different format. Share screen. So this is just a brief PDF of what I anticipate the report looking like. So at the top, quarterly savings use report, fiscal year 22, quarter 2. And of course, here you have many departments. We have animal welfare, and it's in alpha order. Next, we have APD, arts and culture, DFAS. And to the right, we actually have the percentage of budget moved between the major categories. What this is telling us is, okay, how much are you moving in comparison to the department's overall budget? So I'll scroll all the way up to the top. So the transactions for animal welfare, and these aren't all the transactions. I want to preface this. These are just examples that each budget analyst inserted so we could kind of get a flavor for the report. So you take $180,000 and you divide it by animal welfare's total budget. So right now it would be 1.33% of the budget. And you keep on scrolling down. How much are you actually moving above, again, and below the lines? And you could see different examples in here of using above the line to below the line. Here's an example from EHD where they've used professional services, contractual services below the line to fund above the line wage adjustments. So in the end, we also have final page total general fund. So what's our total general fund budget? And of course, let me also state this is only for general fund counselors. So in the end, we have movement of $6.1 million. How does it relate to the total budget of $714,521,000? So we have less than 1%, 0.9% of total movement between.
Mr. Davis, could you kind of wrap it up a little bit? Because I think that there's a lot of detail here, and while we appreciate it, it's we'd like to move on with our meeting.
Sure. Let me stop sharing. Sorry, Madam President. So that's all I had. You caught me at the right moment. I just wanted to provide as much detail as I could. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. And, I think counselors probably want to deal more with policy than getting in the weeds. So, but we appreciate your insight and always appreciate your professionalism. Counselors, do you have any questions for Mr. Davis? Counselor Davis. Counselor Davis, your hand is up.
I'm sorry, Madam President. I was going to say, if any other councilors want to go ahead. I'll use it as a close as well. If Councilor Benton or anybody else wants to jump in.
Counselors, anyone else?
Thanks.
I don't see any other. Oh, Councilor Benton?
Yeah, thanks, Madam President. Just quickly, I appreciate the presentation. I think you can see that this could really be useful for us. We encounter these vacancy savings so often when we're looking at the budgets, and this really puts it out there. I know that at first finance was sort of kind of concerned this is going to be a major imposition in terms of time. I hope it's not for them, but because I think it's really informative. So I appreciate that. But I'll turn it over to Councilor Davis, who did most of the heavy lifting on this on the council side.
Councilor Davis?
Madam President, I know folks are ready to go, so I'll make it quick. I want to commend Mr. Davis, Renee, Sanjay, the entire team that's really worked with us for almost a year on this. I will be the first to admit that all these meetings didn't go well. Us asking questions that we didn't know how to answer was really hard. But I think what we came up with, and I appreciate the way the administration approached this, particularly today, in saying that we share a need to understand where the taxpayers' dollars are going, and that the budget process doesn't end when we pass the budget and the mayor signs the budget. And that we have an ongoing duty. The budget office has a tremendously hard job to try to figure out how to deal with unanticipated things, right? When we're talking about a $714 million plus capital $1 billion budget, we often end up passing budgets in big buckets of things, and getting into the details really does matter sometimes. Because when we spend money on one thing and not another, it means it's less is available for something else. And lots of discretion should go to the smart people running our departments, but we also want to be sure that like we identified in this process, there were some places where we said, you know what, we're seeing some of these every year. Somebody holds a little bit of vacancy savings open, and always seems to spend for the same thing. So maybe we should just put that thing in the budget and make those adjustments. And I think that's sort of the detail that this is helping. I'm anxious to see this. And so I hope that we'll get some of this data pretty quickly. My speech is longer than it should be, but this process was long, and I want to acknowledge all the hard work of everybody who went into it, including in particular Mr. Pulley, who pulled me off the ledge a couple times and brought us back to the table to figure out how to do this. And so thank you. I think this is good, and I hope the council will pass this so we'll have better data to build budgets in the future years. Thank you, Madam President. That's my close report.
Thank you, Councilor Davis.
Well, actually, I apologize. I don't think that's our motion. We actually, I think I would like to amend my motion at this point, that based on this report, and we'd like this report to give us some data for a little while, I'd like to amend the motion on the floor to withdraw the legislation so that we can reconsider this at a future council.
Thank you, Councilor Davis. We have a motion, and it looks like we have a second from Councilor Benton to withdraw item 050. And if there's no further discussion, and I certainly didn't mean to cut Mr. Davis off. I think it's great when we have these sorts of tools, and having served on council and been in staff position, I know how important these tools are. And I appreciated his passion. But with that motion, Councilor Davis, we will move to Ms. Ortega for a vote.
Councilor Bassan.
Yes.
Councilor Benton.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Gibson.
Yes.
Councilor Harris.
Yes.
Councilor Jones.
Yes.
Councilor Pena.
Yeah.
Councilor Senna.
Yes.
Councilor Borrego.
Yes.
9-0 on the withdrawal.
Thank you, Councilor. So that item is withdrawn. We have two more items on our agenda this evening, councilors. Item C and item G. Councilor Pena, item C, R182.
Thank you, Madam President. R182 is establishing corridor improvements for 118th Street from Interstate 40 to Senator Dennis Chavez Boulevard as a priority for the City of Albuquerque funding processes, encouraging the New Mexico Department of Transportation to prioritize the approval and construction of an interchange at Interstate 40 and 118th. I move a do pass, and then I also have a floor sub that I'd like to move as well. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think we do need the do pass first, and then I intend to move a floor sub.
Councilor, is that a motion? It looks like you have a second from Councilor Bassan, maybe? Is that a second, Councilor Bassan? Okay. Would you like to discuss your?
Thank you, Madam President. Then we have the floor sub, and I think it's in your iPads, and I have a copy in front of me, and there's actually a tracking legend that has the changes that were via LUPS, and then the green letters are the changes for this floor substitute, and then we have language added by LUPS amendment and removed by floor sub. So that's all in on your floor sub. So I would move a do pass on the floor sub, and then I would ask, I think we have Mr. Tom Minicucci here to explain some of the changes.
Okay, so Councilor, you've moved a floor sub. Do I have a second on the floor subs? Councilor Bassan, we have a second. Mr. Minicucci, and Mr. Minicucci, I apologize, but we can only see your body. We can't see your head.
Sorry.
It'd be nice to see your face.
There you go. Apologize. Members of the committee, what the floor sub does, and basically as it does several things, it introduces the a number of whereas clauses explaining the social justice issues that are within the Southwest Mesa, and why those issues are relevant to the case, and that the area has lower income, has a number of tract areas that have a lower income area. The demographics are such, it's a lower income area, large youth populations, a number of households that speak English either as a second language or have two languages in them. And I think it then goes forward to state that a lot of these workers in the area are frontline workers, and that they need to access this area, you leave this area to go to work and to shop in other parts of the city. So it basically goes through that scenario, and that the area does not have a lot of retail because of failures back almost 30 years ago in our land use zoning process, which has left the area to have a fairly moderately high density of housing without the retail services. I think there's some 80,000 people in the area who have very few retail services. So this kind of indicates the need for a roadway system to transport themselves out of the area. Also that the roadway system was not fully developed, because it was being developed mostly by developers as they built the subdivisions. By 2007 with the crash, the roadway system was kind of a patchwork. And I think even before then, and then since there's not been much development in the area since then, these 82,000 people have kind of been left with this patchwork of roadways to access the area. So I think it kind of follows that, and this kind of says how it's consistent with the city's equity and justice policies to go forward and pursue that. The other thing it does primarily then is it takes a number of amendments of the LUPS process, and it that were passed in LUPS, and it removes them and replaces them instead with I think some amendments that are more, I think, consistent, a little bit more consistent with what we found later with the county. What happens is that in the LUPS process, because LUPS committee identified that since much of this roadway is in the county, that they asked that we first, once we do a 30% design of the roadway, the city completes that they go and form an MOU with the county to determine who will pay for what parts of the roadway. When we met with the county, what we understood was that they had started to do some work on the roadway, which was good news. They even indicated they would be willing to pay for the first 30%. The city would not have to. Now, what's key about 30%? 30% completes a design analysis report, and in that report, you identify exactly where your right-of-way is that you will need, how much it will be. You identify the roadway cross-section that you ultimately need to build. You identify the cost for it, and you even provide some conceptual designs. And with that, you can then negotiate out how you would pay for your costs. But what the county said was, they said that our GEO bond isn't of the size that when it comes to roadway projects or major roadway projects, that we fund major roadway projects using our internal funding. What we instead do is go to external funding, and that is either through the Mr. Cog process, acquiring STPU grants, the Surface Transportation Planning Urban Grants. They're available through the Federal FAST Act, which we can use, or else through a mixture of capital outlay. So what they did say is that it would be a little bit more difficult for them to actually be able to form a set MOU where they could actually say, at this point in time, we'll provide this amount of funding, because they just don't know if a grant will come through or not. So what they indicate, though, is they would like to work with the city, though, to file jointly on the grant process. So with that, we kind of remove the need for an MOU, only because filing jointly for an MOU with a joint grant process is probably pretty much, it's kind of like a freebie, for lack of a better term. And that, of course, it's no lack of a better language, I apologize, no skin off anybody to at least apply for a grant. So it's like, sure, we can apply for a grant. So that was that. The other thing that it moved that is in the write-up, but I unfortunately omitted this amendment in the from the tracking document, and that is that the committee also passed an amendment to state that any money that this project, that the interchange project acquires, or at this project at the I-40 interchange, that it would be additional money into, as compared to anything that's currently programmed now in future years for our federal highway system here in the city. The reason the committee pointed that out is that the highway department, in the way they've rebuilt the highway system since starting in early 1990, is they've gone about in a systematic process. And that has completely, at this point in time, done a first rebuild of I-40. They're now working on the north. They've rebuilt the interstate, the Big I, and its nearby interchanges, and they've been finishing now up. They hope to finish the next couple of years, Interstate 25 north of Manal up towards Tramway. They have two more projects left, and that's the rebuild of the Montgomery and Comanche interchanges. They then will go to their last interchange project, their last set, which is the area from Cole to Gibson. And that is the last area to be rebuilt. So I think the committee's concern was that they would want to make sure that that doesn't get bumped back further, since as it stands now, if that does occur, it may not be occurring until the 2027, 2030 timeframe. So that was it. I think I would have to refer to, I think that was this kind of taken out, just that, just I guess to allow for the I-40 tram, for the I-40 and 118th project to also just kind of apply for grants as they come available. I think they didn't want too many restrictions on that. That was also it. The other thing, the other issue that the city or that the committee put in was just a requirement that we go ahead and look, that they go and look along the corridor or work with the county to form a working group for zoning and planning to see if there are opportunities along the corridor to rechange some of the zoning from residential to commercial, so as to maybe try to get a little bit more neighborhood development commercial in the area. 118th will be a community principal arterial that's equivalent to 98th or Manal or whatever. Community principal arterials are what retail prefer to locate on most, because they're both 6 lanes, 4 to 6 lanes, and they also have access off driveways as compared to a smaller road doesn't have as much lanes, or a large road such as Unser and 90, or Unser and Coors, which are in the Southwest Mesa, but they're limited access and do not have good access off the roadway, except at major intersections for retail. So I think it was to look at those opportunities. The floor amendment just kind of, the floor sub just puts into it that, just kind of puts in that they would still have that committee. Just doesn't give too much details on what the committee's to do. Just kind of, they do meet together. I think the reason being is that since the land is already zoned, all the committee could really do is kind of approach property owners and ask if they would like to look at a rezoning. So they didn't want to put anything too specific. So that's primarily what the floor sub does. My understanding, I'm not quite sure. I do have to point out to you that we still have one section where we do have to still work on, and that is in the floor sub. We have 2 section 6s in there. So we'll have to work in the next couple of weeks to clarify that. One section 6, and just kind of see that one section 6 adds in the provision that we will work with the county to get a agreement going. Another section 6 adds in that there will be a public-private partnership equivalent to what's occurring up in on the Unser and Paseo projects, where the private developers would build the outside lanes along their property, and the public partnership would build the inside lanes. So again, that's still something that we just caught this afternoon that we need to get straightened out in the next couple of weeks. So that's basically a summary of it.
Okay, thank you. So the council president has been called away, so I'll be taking over for a few minutes. So thank you for that, Tom. Mr. Minicucci, sorry. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Minicucci? Yes, Councilor Benton, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. So Tom, just to clarify, the language having to do with the state DOT and the other existing priorities on I-25, will that or will that not be in the floor sub, or is that a moot point? Because maybe I got confused too. Did we remove does the floor sub remove the language with regard to the interstate interchange?
Correct, Councilor Benton. It does remove the language with interstate interchange. Unfortunately, I omitted it by accident from the tracking document.
Okay, so it's really redundant language, because that language being taken out of the floor sub, right? Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And go ahead. My apologies.
Well, I just wanted to clarify that, but go ahead.
Well, this is one of the things we have to remember with the highway, again, with the interstate system, as we point out in LUPS, is that I think it helps guide the city, that language, as to where we want our priorities. The interstate system is under the jurisdiction of the Federal Highway Administration and under the New Mexico Department of Transportation. And kind of the core of the United States transportation system, the interstates. So when it comes to where they build, they pretty much hold that to their domain. We can always make our recommendations. And of course, if we find additional funds, we could always, provide it to them and see if they'd be willing to build with it. But as far as the funds they have programmed using their Interstate Act funding, which is part of the old Eisenhower Act funding, for our we build an interstate, they pretty much hold that domain to where they would like to build, and they build it in cooperation and coordination with the Federal Highway Administration as to what they see as a priority for maintaining the overall interstate system throughout the United States.
Okay, and so Madam Vice President, if I may, So the other aspect of this is that from the city standpoint, a lot of the roadway is really bounded by the county, at least on one side, and some places on two sides, correct?
Actually, almost, Counselor. A lot of the roadway is within the county. So here's the situation. I'm glad you pointed that out. What the 4 sub looks at. So the part that's in the city is from Avenida is on the south part of it, of this jurisdiction, of the boundaries of this bill, and that is from Avenida to Cesar Chavez, Cesar Chavez to Amole Mesa, and that part is fully within the city. From basically around Amole Mesa, which is up to Interstate 40, it's in the county. However, it's completely within the county, and the parts in the city is completely within the city. And I think that's one of the other issues too that I think that was a little concern the sponsor had with the LUPS amendments. And I think is that by all logic, since most of the roadway is within the county that would be built, it should fall to the county to have a major role in it. Here's what the problem is. Here's part of the problem. The city comes up within. I should apologize. The city comes up to within probably 300 or 400 feet of the part that's within the county. On the east side of it, the city the boundary is within about 200 or 300 feet of the roadway. And of course, that's residential housing from there almost all the way to Coors and a little bit beyond. After that, it's then vacant to where the cross section where the right of way would be for 118th Street. And then past that, it's vacant basically to the Rio Puerco, to the Laguna Pueblo line. So for the county's purposes, if we say, when we spoke with them, if we'd like you to have this as a priority, they could say, yes, it's a priority, but again, who will be using this is mainly the city residents and will primarily be the city residents. So for us, if we do have any priorities, partly what we have to do is that we have to look at areas where we have not residents that live in the unincorporated county that need additional roadways. That could be the South Valley, far North Valley, far Northwest, Northeast Albuquerque, East Mountains. This area here is still not yet in a developed area for their purposes. For the city's purpose, the area was developed 20 years ago. So we kind of have, so like we put in the write-up, the roadway kind of falls into a twilight zone in that matter. Because it would feel technically it would look like it's mostly it's a county issue, but the way it's going to operate, it's mostly to provide needed services for the city residents. So I think that's one of the reasons too that they wanted to kind of see how the process develops before they were able to commit to anything regarding who pays for what.
Well, if I may, I'm sorry, I need to just clarify this a little bit more. So if this is primarily serving city residents, and it's in many cases it's a stone's throw from the city limit, wouldn't normally we be annexing this roadway and then making it a city roadway if that's really the case? I mean, do we have a similar example of a roadway where the city may or may not, but it sounds like may be taking on responsibility for the main project because the county doesn't have funds or whatever, and it doesn't serve that many county residents, then wouldn't that be the normal course of action?
I can't speak too in depth to the annexation process, Counselor. I do know that regarding roadway development, that prior to the formation of the water authority, when the city had controlled the water and sewer system, that yes, historically, as developers came in, they added it, they asked for annexation into the city. My understanding is at the time when they established the water authority, I think it was some 18 years ago, there was also previous to that some changes to the annexation boundary rules. So since then, when county lands are developed now, the developers are mostly, when they come in and do residential areas, they're mostly keeping them within the county. I mean, that's their plan so far. So I'm not quite, that's historically been what's happening the last 18 years. I could be wrong. So again, whether or not that in this case here, the developers, as they develop their land, would want to come in to the city, or if the county, seeing their tax revenue, would want to let them in, that I couldn't speak to, or how that's all changed.
Yeah, I mean, this is in Councilor Pena's district and it's her project, and I support the project. I don't, I've said that repeatedly. I really do acknowledge the need and that it needs to happen. What it looks like, what the final roadway looks like, and what the land uses are that occur adjacent to it, whether city or county, I think are really important part of the question, and the reason I kind of stuck my nose into it. And I've explained that to Councilor Pena a couple of times, not trying to mess with her deal, because I do think that a road is necessary there. The question is, what does it look like? And so that's kind of my concern. I still feel somewhat confused about it. I don't know how other councilors feel. Was the intention to defer this until the next meeting? I didn't get clear on that, because I agree that the thing about section 6 was part of my confusion.
So,
Madam Vice President, if I may.
yeah, well, before you answer though, let me ask a question of our director or Ms. Kuladon. As I recall, if we pass this floor sub, that we are compelled to wait one more meeting to vote on this, unless we suspend the rules. Is that a correct statement, Mr. Melendez?
Madam Vice President, that is exactly correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'm sorry, Councilor Pena, go ahead with what you wanted to say.
Madam Vice President, I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt your train of thought there. Okay, we'll go to Councilor Bassan. And maybe
Madam Vice President, thank you. I think the question was, Councilor Benton was wondering if we were going to defer. If you were going to defer, or if that was what the motion was intended to be.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Bassan. Madam Vice Chair, I apologize. My internet keeps saying it's unstable, so I'm like hearing every third word that everyone is saying. Yes, so the intention is to defer. There was some stuff that was omitted, and it's going to require us to defer this resolution. But, it really is my intent. I mean, I would love to go out and, tour the area with you and just to really have a conversation. I mean, there's other roads in the city. If you look at like 4th Street, Rio Grande, North Valley, how it serves the city. But, we have, Los Ranchos that just drives through on Rio Grande. And so it's really that, and it's not a priority necessarily. The county has made it a priority, but priority in terms of really advocating for the dollars to go there. I think they're looking at it as a city, because just like roads like 4th Street are serving primarily city residents, but it's primarily county roads that are in that area. So yeah, just to answer your question, I do intend to defer it.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Pena. Then is it your intention then to vote on the floor sub as it is, or did you want to defer before the?
No, I'd like to vote on the floor sub, Madam Vice President, because would like to vote on it at the next meeting. So what we'd do is add amendments. Some of the omissions, they would be in the form of amendments.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think I may have misunderstood. You want to move the floor sub, or move the floor sub and then add some amendments to the floor sub?
Right. So I would move the floor sub so that we accept the floor sub this evening and then defer it.
Okay. Do you
Is
then
that-
have
I think that's
amendments?
correct.
Do you then have amendments to the floor sub?
I
No?
think another counselor may have an amendment.
All right. Okay, so there's a motion to move the floor sub and a second. Are there any other questions or are we ready for a vote? I don't see any other questions, so Ms. Ortega, would you do the vote for us, please? Roll
Yes.
call.
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Senna,
Yes.
8-0 on the floor sub.
Okay. So now we're back to the bill and the motion now is for deferral, correct?
I think there may be another, Madam Vice President, another counselor who may have an amendment. If not, I would move the deferral.
Okay. Is there an amendment lingering out there? I guess we're not ready to move that amendment, maybe. I don't know where it is, but.
Okay. Okay, then I would move a deferral for 2 weeks.
Okay. That will take us to the 15th, I believe, November 15th. Is there a second for the motion to defer? There's a second from Councilor Benton. Thank you for that. And we'll go back to Ms. Ortega for the roll call vote.
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Senna,
Yes.
8-0 on the deferral as substituted.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that. All right, I believe that we just have one last item. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Councilor Bassan for Rule Amendment 6.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Rule Amendment 6, amending Article 3, Section 6 of the City Council Rules of Procedure relating to adding or updating city ordinance bills. I move a do pass.
And do we have a second for that motion? Do not see a second. Without a second,
Where are we? I apologize. I'm hearing it, Madam Vice President.
we're on Councilor Bassan's rule amendment, RA 6, and she made a do pass motion. Are you?
I'll second the motion. Again, my internet's unstable, so sorry.
Okay, so we do have a second. And I thought I saw, oh, we have the president of the council back again, so I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Madam President.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. I appreciate your willingness to take that on. I had a quick long distance phone call I had to take on. We have a motion and we have a second. Are there any questions regarding this matter?
Madam President, if I may just introduce it a little bit.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you. The purpose for this rules amendment was, as evidenced by some of our previous conversations, sometimes I think that things either go through committees a little bit quicker than maybe they should, or they shouldn't even go in committee in the first place, I guess. And so my idea and hope was that, at least in regards to city ordinances being proposed or amended, we would be able to say that they should have 2 committee hearings. So that way it would make sure that we're having some full discussions and evaluations on making changes to stuff that is really going to be very important in creating the laws that we have in our city without the unnecessary just either rushing it through and wasting time, or forcing it to be discussed properly. So if not, otherwise, if we have a more urgency, then it should be at holdover, and then the full council can discuss it in its original form. And so I would love to get support, and I would answer any questions.
Are there any questions, Counselor Davis and Counselor Harris?
Let Counselor Harris go ahead. I'm trying to catch up my computer.
Yes, I think we shouldn't make any changes to these committee rules. Because I mean, what do we want to do if we have immediate action, or can we decide to blast it out of a committee at the committee? I mean, there's all these other questions that aren't answered by this rule. But most importantly, I don't think we should make any changes to the committee structure until we're past COVID. Because I think one thing Councilor Bassan was not, she didn't get to enjoy, if that's the right word, probably not, but experience committees when they could function properly, when we were in the committee room, and it was a little bit more of an open dialogue, a little bit more of an intimate environment, where people would come and the chair of the committee could call on different people. Depending on the agenda, we could let people talk for 5 minutes, and it was an opportunity to have a little bit of collaboration. And that's just not, again, I don't see a whole lot of difference between a Zoom committee meeting and a council committee meeting. I don't really like either on Zoom, frankly. But I think part of the frustration that Councilor Bassan is feeling is somewhat of a function of she's been on the council almost entirely in the world of COVID.
Thank you, Counselor Harris. Counselor Davis?
Let no one say that the spirit of bipartisanship is dead on this council. I agree with Counselor Harris. Like, it's maybe not a bad idea, but maybe we got to get back to normal business and see how that works first. So who knows? Maybe we are starting a new era.
Counselor Jones?
Thank you, Madam President. I must say, having been here probably as long as anybody has on this council, it has been, in the past, under normal conditions, it has been extremely helpful to have open discussion and to be able to actually work the way through things we didn't understand. Sometimes things fly too quickly through committees now, and shame on us for not taking the time to do what we have to do it. And we'll try to do better on that. But to go directly to council, far too many pieces that come in front of council are just voted on and moved through. And I believe that the committees, even though I get very tired of going to them or participating in them, I do believe they have a very good purpose that allows us to discuss more openly and with sometimes heated candor, and try to fix what the legislation or the ideas we put forward to make them better. So as much as I would like to back you on this one, Councilor Bassan, I think we need to get our toes back in the water a little bit and see if the use of the committees doesn't improve what we're doing. And if it doesn't, then we could revisit this. But at this point, even though there are some committees I hate going to, but that's part of it. You don't always get the fun ones. I do believe that the committee structure has a very definite purpose in the council. So, sorry.
Thank you, Counselor Jones. Counselor Bassan?
Well, I'm sorry, Madam President, I can wait as a close as well if there's other.
That was the final counselor that had their hand up.
Great, thank you, Madam President. I think that everyone makes valid points. I'll be the first to admit that I have not seen committees in action in their finest form. From what I've heard, they used to be splendid. I have never seen that happen now, and perhaps it is because of COVID. Perhaps it is because of Zoom. It's not because I'm tired of going to Zooms or that I don't want to attend them. I'm happy to do so. I mean, I would really rather prefer it in person, but I think that I want to make sure to clarify, I'm not saying we would rush anything to council, but I am prepared to change my motion. However, I would please like to urge this council to not rush things through council or committee, because I think they have been. I mean, we don't defer anything. I don't think I've ever seen anything almost deferred in committee like what has been explained to me in the past, so that we can chew at it together and like work on things. I really would like to see that. I think that I would like to participate in that. And as the chair of a committee, as noted earlier, I also would be happy to make sure to hold things back if that's going to be what pleases the other counselors, even though I don't think that's what we want either. So I would like to move for a deferral for 90 days.
Thank you, Counselor. I'll second your deferral. I think in light of having a new council in January, that's probably a wise decision. Any other comments? If not, Counselor Bassan, did you have anything else you wanted to say? Thank you. We will move to Ms. Ortega for the vote.
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Senna,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego,
Yes.
9-0 on the deferral to February 7th, 2022.
Thank you, counselors. That concludes our business this evening. Being no further business to come before this council, this meeting is adjourned.